You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Tuesday, March 19, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Justin Jones is on vacation this week, and Wyatt Fulton really keeping some old school hours this week, in early and out of here late. He's pretty much here all day, but he's helping me out with my show this week. He's there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the First and Main Condos hotline in hour number 1, the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline in hour number 2, 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904 is the number. And boy, we got so much to cover this morning. It is a really busy time for sports on the floor, on the court, on the field, and off. Of course, the business of sports has become such a big story. And all of the coaches at the University of Alabama for the football staff had their contracts approved and their salaries approved yesterday by the Board of Trustees, Compensation Committee. And so we'll run all those down for you. Nate Oates gets his expected extension and raise. Greg Byrne gets a raise, the AD. Some other coaches getting some contract approvals as well. And, man, that football staff, of course, they're taking over a program that I still would argue that it's the best program in the country. I'd still argue over the last, I know Georgia's right there, there's some others, but over the last 10 years, certainly, I would argue that Alabama's still the best program in the country. And really even over the last 5, with 1 national championship, 3 SEC championships in there, and they're taking over a great program, and they're going to be paid like it's the best program in the country. Unbelievable amount of money being paid out for football coaches' salaries, and I've got pretty good perspective having been here over 20 years. I go back to when Mike Shula was only making, I say only, it's in the real world, this is still a ton of money, Wyatt, but Mike Shula in 2006 was making $900,000 a year. Mark Godfrey, the basketball coach, was making more. And of course, Nate Oates will make a ton of money here too, but Mark Godfrey made more. So if you figure the head coach was making $900,000, and that's not like that was 50 years ago. That was 18 years ago. And even Saban, for all of the talk about how Alabama had blown up the salary structure when they hired Nick Saban, for the $3.5-4 million, whatever it was, they hired him for, that would be, of course, for a head coaching salary now, that'd be nothing in this league. In fact, I don't think anybody in the league in the SEC makes that little, but certainly coaches' salaries have kept up with inflation and then some. Kalen DeBoer, $10 million a year to start. Of course, listen, cha-ching, you can cha-ching a few times, and we'll hear that again when I do the Alabama Credit Union commercial here in just a second. But all these guys, they work hard, there's no doubt about it, but they are handsomely paid. We're going to run all that down for you. We're going to talk NCAA basketball tournament. Have you filled out your bracket yet? Why do we have a bracket challenge at Tide109.com?
I don't think we do. I can set one up.
Okay, I'm just wondering. That might be, of course, you got a million things going on this week. I don't know. I just was checking to see, but there's tons of bracket challenges out there, and I'm going to do one. I am not going to do I'm going to do mine today. I'm not going to do one where I'm in it for money. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to do it for fun. I'm not going to run one or anything and that type of stuff, but going to do one for fun and track it and see how it goes. But we'll be talking NCAA basketball tournament, men and women, and I'll tell you who we're going to have on the show in just a moment. But I do need to tell you, before we go any further, about Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way of banking. Ran into Steve Swafford, the CEO at Billy's last night after I did the early sports. I went down to Billy's to grab a bite to eat, and Steve was in there, and I always enjoy visiting with him. What a great gentleman. What a class organization. Alabama Credit Union is just everything about it is first class. You can find out more at alabamacu.com, or you can go by and see them at one of their nearly 40 locations around the state of Alabama and the Panhandle of Florida. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. and put extra change in your pocket. And as good as Alabama Credit Union is, I'm not going to promise you that you're going to put Kalen DeVore type change in your pocket, but you will save money and you'll earn higher interest rates, and you'll just have a better financial experience at Alabama Credit Union. All right, the guest lineup for today, we got two guests at 9:30. It's the Rocket Man, Drudy Armand, 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville. And then 10 o'clock, Alabama baseball coach Rob Vaughn coming off that huge SEC opening series victory over the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee came in here number 5 in the country. And Alabama, with that series victory wide in the coaches poll, is back in the top 10. It's been a while. So, Rob Vaughn making headway. We'll run down the schedule for this week and this weekend, and talk with Alabama's head baseball coach about everything Bama baseball and the fact that the Tide is doing some really good things. And it's a long season in the SEC. Every weekend is a little mini regional, but to get that series victory over Tennessee, particularly after losing game 1 on Friday night, was huge for Alabama baseball. So that's our guest lineup. As we said, if you want to call in on the program, First and Main Condos hotline is open for business here at 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. All right, Wyatt, let's dive into these coaching salaries. And again, you get what you deserve, and this is where we're at in college sports. So, I mean, these guys they're going to work their you-know-what off, but a lot of people work their you-know-what off and will never, ever, ever come close to making the kind of money that football coaches make. And it isn't something that was always the case. As I've said before, I go back covering sports, 40-something years, and I can remember in the SEC when some assistant coaches, this was in the 80s, some assistant coaches, and I'm talking about full-time, one of the full-time 9 assistant coaches on the staff were making $38,000, $40,000 a year in some cases. Wide receivers coach at an SEC school. I remember as a friend of mine, the late Jody Allen, who was when he was at Ole Miss, I think his first salary, he'd coached at Alabama too. I think his first salary at Ole Miss, I want to say that was 1987 maybe, somewhere in there. Wide, I think it was about $38,000 a year. And, the head coaches at these schools were making, 6 figures, but not, there were a number of coaches that were making under $200,000. And we're talking about in the 1980s as head coaches. So, this is really blown up. And one thing I'll say, Wyatt, and if you disagree, you can chime in. If I'm a college football coach or a college basketball coach or really a college coach, period, at any school, and I just look at my monthly check stub or direct deposit stub, who I'm saying I'm probably doing, saying a prayer to the good Lord for blessing me, but I'm also saying thank you, Nick Saban. Because Nick Saban, when he left the Miami Dolphins and came to the University of Alabama in 2007, completely changed the salary structure, not just for head coaches in college football, but across the board. One of the things he did was he demanded that his staff be paid top dollar. And that started in 2007, and it increased to the point where by the, 2010-ish, 2011, 12, and there, you could see where we were headed with this. And you could see that universities knew they had to pay not only their head coach the going rate if they wanted to get a good one, but they had to start paying their staff. And I'm not talking about just coaches on the field. We're talking about strength and conditioning coaches. We're talking about trainers. We're talking about support personnel. David Ballou, the strength coach at Alabama, got a raise. He's now making $950,000 a year. And again, going back to 20 years ago, a strength coaching position was still a good job. Don't get me wrong, but most of those strength coaches in this league were making under $200,000 a year. In fact, Scott Cochran, when he came with Saban, I think he was the first, what you would say, just really high-paid strength and conditioning coach. And I think at that time maybe it was $250,000 a year, something like that. And then other schools, again, started to follow. But Nick Saban changed the salary structure, and then that carried over to basketball and to basketball assistants. So I guess what I'm saying is we're talking a lot, and I have said before, I like I like structure. I like uniformity. I think in terms of NIL, and Wimp and Barry had Auburn athletic director on this morning, and John Cohen was talking about the need for standards for NIL, which I agree. And I like it in everything. I like rules. I like regulations. I like standards. I like organization. I think that's what makes our society successful. But in the college coaching structure, you can make a lot of money and you can make it a lot quicker. There was a time too when assistant coaches came up through the ranks and they might work 3 or 4 jobs. I'm talking about at the D1 level before they really found a job that paid them a lot of money. There were a lot of coaches, I've talked to them, and I'm not saying this to try to throw shade at what these coaches are making now. I'm just giving you some perspective. You know why? You're 20-something years old. I'll be 60 in June. I got in the TV business when I was 18 years old. I was going to media days at Stillwaters for Coach Dye and Ray Perkins down here in Tuscaloosa, and being around coaches in that era. There were a lot of assistant coaches at that time who depended on the camps, depended maybe on their wife teaching. I'm talking about to make ends meet. I'm talking about, if you were a coach and you had 3 or 4 kids, you might have your coaching job, your wife was working. It was a living, but it wasn't to this level. So these coaches now that are 30, 35, 38, 40 years old, making this kind of money, they should think they're lucky stars. And I'm not saying again that they don't deserve it, but this is not something that has always been the case, especially with assistant coaches and support personnel. A lot of them were more in line with what we consider normal people salaries. That's not the case now.
Yeah, I thought it was wild that the lowest paid coaches, quote air quotes around only making $250,000, and they're getting an $800 stipend for vehicles, and so it's absolutely wild. Making $250,000,
and that's Jay Nunez, the special teams coordinator. And I'm not even sure how his job is structured because he's not technically an on the field assistant.
Yeah, he's supposed to, I think he's on the field during the week, but he's in the box.
Yeah, that's right. He can't. I don't think he can be a part of during the game with a headset on because you're allowed 10 full-time assistant coaches on the field, and in terms of the game, that can have headsets on and be a part of it. And you got Kalen DeBoer as the head coach, Womack, Sheridan, Shepard, Roach, Lindquist, Kapilovic, Gillespie, Robinson, and Hitchler are your 10, and Ellis are your 10 assistants that fill that role. And then Jay Nunez, who's making $250K, yes, he's on the staff, but on game days, he will not be allowed to have a headset on. So, and he's making $250,000. I'll run them down for you just real quick before we hit the break. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and hit the break so we can stay on time. We'll come back and we'll run down all of these salaries for the Alabama coaching staff and football. Talk about Nate Oates' extension, his assistant coaches' salaries, and more news. And at 9:30, Drew DeArmond. At 10 o'clock, Rob Vaughn. Your phone calls are welcome on the First and Main Condos hotline at 205-342-9904. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC.
This season of Alabama football on Tide 100.9 brought to you by Birmingham Racecourse Casino. Just a few minutes away where you can be a winner too.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by Everwood Treatment Company, the official treated lumber of Alabama athletics. Everwood, wood treated right. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Sunday, Alabama men's basketball learned it was the number 4 seed for the NCAA tournament. Here's more from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nate Oates.
We're excited to be in the tournament. We told our guys, not everybody gets to do this. You look at the quality of teams that were left out of the tournament. There's a lot of good players not playing anymore. There's a lot of good teams not playing. So regardless of where we get sent, we're excited to go there. Spokane, we've had good runs out west. Personally, we've got a long flight out to Spokane. Charleston's got a longer flight. So don't know a ton about Charleston. Coach Kelsey's one of the better up and coming young head coaches. They play a pretty modern style of basketball, pretty similar to us, to be honest with you. I mean, their offense is top 60 in the country. Their pace of play is top 50. Their three-point rate's top 20.
I'll have more in a moment.
Producing championship quality lumber is not an easy process, but at Everwood Preserving, it's our only process. Wood treated right. Everwood offers top-notch pressure-treated wood for decks, outdoor structures, commercial jobs, and more that you can build your reputation on. When it comes to quality, we're on the winning team. Visit your local Everwood dealer today and discover the difference for yourself. Everwood Preserving Incorporated, the official lumber of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
If you missed last night's edition of Hey Coach presented by Alpha Insurance, catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider podcast as well as the CTSN YouTube page. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by Everwood. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Cool and dry today with a sunny sky, the high 57. Clear tonight, not as cold as last night, the low 36. Tomorrow, sunny and warmer, the high 71. Thursday, clouds move in, a chance of rain Thursday night, the high at 69. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 38 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
You can't get away from it, can you? And it's money is dominating the discussion in college athletics, and we're going to talk about these coaches' salaries. Also, as expected, Ross Dellinger reporting ESPN and the College Football Playoff have finalized their agreement for a 6-year extension through 2031, paying $1.3 billion annually on average. Formal announcement is coming today. So, it's that's where a lot of this money is coming from, is this TV deal with ESPN. All right, real quickly, just to run down, we're going to get to Digger in Louisiana here on the phone line in just a minute on the First and Main Condos hotline. But let me run down these salaries for you for the Alabama football coaching staff. We're going to get to basketball. Greg Byrne in just a little bit, but head coach Kalen DeBoer, $10 million annually. Defensive coordinator Kane Womack, $1.55 million. Offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan, $1.35 million. Now, both of those are lower than what the two coordinators made last year for Alabama under Nick Saban. Wide receiver Jamarcus Shepard, $1.1 million. Defensive line coach Freddie Roach, $1 million. Defensive backs Maurice Lindquist, $875,000 a year. Chris Kapilovic, offensive line, $875K. Running backs Robert Gillespie, $850K. Outside linebacker Christian Robinson, $650K. Defensive back coach Colin Hitchler, $625K. Tight end Brian Ellis, $550K. Strength and conditioning David Ballou, $950K. And special teams coordinator Jay Nunez, $250,000 a year. So all those guys well compensated. Again, that's where we're at now in college sports, but that is a lot of money to coach football. All right, let's jump out on the First and Main Condos hotline, and our buddy Digger in Louisiana is with us. Hey, good morning, Digger.
Well, I can certainly justify the expense for the coaches. I can remember years ago, the Lost Dogs at Texas. He was fielding questions, and one of the professors there was complaining, said, "Why are you paying Mack Brown $7 million a year?" And DeLoss quipped and said, "If you can fill the stadium of 100,000 8 times a year, I'll pay you $7 million." Well, that shut him up.
That's a good response. It is, yeah.
And then he winked, and that's without tenure. And he's like, what? And a lot of the reporters going, oh, like, oh, okay, there you go. But real quick, I can justify all that, even the strength and conditioning, because you are paid to get your players out on the field of any playing surface, okay?
Right.
That is not an easy job, I promise you, even in volleyball. Okay, basketball, football, volleyball, baseball, I'm telling you, it is a very difficult job to get them back on the field. Okay? You can have coaches prodding them and everything, but if they're hurt, they're hurt. Okay? So you got to get them ready, in both in the conditioning and everything. My question is, Greg Byrne, okay, what is he doing giving himself a raise here?
Well, he did. You know how that works, Dicker. He didn't technically give himself a raise. That comes from, for the AD, that comes from the president's office, and he doesn't sign off on his own raise. You know that. So, and I'll tell you this:
why are you giving him a raise?
Well, because he's done a good job as the AD, and when you look at what these coaches are making, his new contract will start out. From July 24 to 2025, he'll make $1,885,000. By June 2031, that'll be up to $2,305,000. So he'll be under $2 million for the next 2 years. And that's you're talking about the going rate for coaches. That's the going rate for top ADs, man. They're making that kind of money.
And again, and I'm not trying to belittle the guy or any point or downgrading the guy. Okay. One SEC championship to show for it, and your athletic department's running in the red. Okay? I'm asking you to manage it a little bit better to come up with a more competitive sorts of teams here. Okay? I know basketball's better, and that's the coach, too. He got his raise, and he earned it. Okay? But the athletic department, come on. You got to do a better job than that to get your pay raise, man.
Well, the University of Alabama is happy with Greg Byrne and the job he's doing, so that's why they want to lock him down.
My goodness.
And I'll tell you what else that tells me, Digger.
You want to call that a standard?
When you want to lock a guy down for 7 years, that tells me that other schools would like to have the guy. So.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, Greg Byrne can get a job.
I'm looking at CDC. I'm being serious. I'm looking at CDC, who won 12 Big 12 championships last year, and he asked for a raise and he got it because he earned it. Okay. How many SEC championships did your athletic department reign?
Well, I'd have to go add it up. They're the reigning SEC football champion. Last season, they won the regular season and tournament championship in men's basketball.
That's two.
And I'd have to.
Are you anywhere near 10?
No, not anywhere near 10. And very few schools are.
And that warrants a raise.
I think so.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, you might disagree. Yeah,
you keep on doing that, and I'll love to see how you guys are doing in 3 or 4 years.
All right,
I'm serious about that.
We'll check and see, Digger. Appreciate it. Hey, I will say this, Wyatt, in regards to, again, I don't want people to come across as, listen, do I wish I made more money? Sure. Do you wish you made more money? Sure. I mean, that's, but I mean, I've never made a ton of money. I do enjoy what I do. That's worth something. But Larry Bird, back when he played for the Celtics, of course, Red Auerbach had maneuvered to get Larry Bird. He wanted Larry Bird. Larry Bird turned out to be one of the all-time greats. So this would have probably been in the early 80s, 81 or so, when he got his rookie contract when he came out of Indiana State. But when he signed his first big extension, Wyatt, you'll get a kick out of this. And this is true. I mean, these are not everybody, especially when we're talking about athletes particularly. I mean, to play pro football or even play college football or college basketball, you got to have special talent. Not everybody has it. But Larry Bird signed a mega contract for that time. I couldn't tell you what it is. I'd have to look it up. But a TV reporter asked him about his contract, and he said, and she, I think it might have been a female reporter, but a female, male, it doesn't matter. He was asked by a TV reporter about his contract and with, people in Boston, inflation and unemployment rate, and how he would, respond to those people and him making all this money. You know what he said? He said, I tell him he should have been a basketball player. Which is a true statement. I mean, it's a very specialized profession, or even to play at the college level. And coaching takes a very special talent too. I mean, most of these times, not everybody can coach. You know what I mean? And so you get what you can get, but to sit here and try to say it's not a lot of money, it is a lot of money what these guys are making.
5-year, $3.25 million contract with the team, making him the highest paid rookie in sports history.
There you go. Yeah, it was
at the time.
Yeah, and that was 5 years, $3 million. That was less than $1 million a year. But at that time, that was mega money. And Larry Bird's response is, I tell him they should have been a basketball player. And you know what? That kind of is true, because not very many people can do that. So, all right, we got to get to the break. We're going to come back with the Rocket Man, Drew DeArmond, 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville, and we'll ask him about all these salaries and more. Keep it dialed into the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM, WTBC.
Wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man that think I am at home.
Welcome back in. Gary John, we're trying to get him on the phone. Don't know what's going on, but why it's working to get him. All right, let me run down. Digger wanted to call in and talk about Greg Burns' contract. And it's contract and extension. He will, beginning this July 2024 through June 2025, will make $1,885,000. That'll go up through the life of the contract, as we said, by July of 2030, that will go up to $2,305,000. So it's going up, but that's very much in line. And in fact, there are athletic directors that are making more. All right, we've got Drew now with us on the First and Main Condos hotline. Good morning, Drew. How are you?
Good, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. Let's start you off with salaries, since that's what we've been talking about this morning. New contracts and salaries approved for the new football staff. Nate Oates extension and raise. Greg Byrne gets a raise, but the football staff is inheriting, which I still think over the last 10 years, clearly, and even over the last 5 years with 3 SECs and 1 national championship, I still think it's the most prominent football program in the country. And all these guys are going to be paid like it, although the coordinators actually will be making less than the 2 coordinators made last year, but $10 million for Kalen DeBoer, right on through really top flight coaching salaries for this Alabama staff. Your reaction?
Well, I mean, I think the reason the coordinators offensively are making a little less is you got a co-coordinator situation. Both those guys making really good money as far as, and you needed to be able to keep Jamarcus Shepard, because he was a guy that was wanted by, I think, some other schools, including being retained by Washington. And then, of course, Nick Sheridan. That's just in line with what coordinators are making now. Kane Womack, the highest paid assistant, $1.5 million. And that's just these salaries are they're astronomical now. I mean, that's just the going rate. You got running backs coach making $875, offensive line coach making $875, Freddie Roach making $1.1 million. So I think it's probably the highest paid staff I've ever seen. It's the most $1 million assistants we've seen when you count, certainly the co-OCs and Sheridan and Shepard, and then the DC, and then Freddie Roach, all those guys. And then you've got, 3 other assistants, because Mo Linguist also is making almost $900,000 a year. It's a very well-paid staff, no question about it. David Ballou now one of the highest paid strength coaches in football, but I think the infrastructure is very strong. I had a listener reach out to me today, and he was talking about how Kalen DeBoer, how can it's crazy he hasn't won a championship. How can you pay him that much? Well, look on the short list. How many coaches out there have won a championship? There's not very many, but he's played for a national championship. He did that with Washington. And when you combine that with the fact that he had a $9 million a year extension on his desk for several months last year, Alabama's just paying what the market tells you. And I think it's a great commitment to Coach DeBoer. And I think the Nate Oates situation. I think it's the fourth extension Greg Byrne has signed him to. He's now going to be among the top 5. And then if the contracts, and then they don't, contracts get reworked all the time. He could even be a top 3 paid head coach in the country. And when you have a hot commodity like Alabama does, and he's done it over a 5-year period. This is not 1 year. This is not 2 years. He's already done it over a 5-year period. And he's already turned out 4 head coaches during that time frame. Then you do what you have to do. And certainly Greg Byrne's been ahead of the curve, and especially with jobs with connections to Oates like Michigan opening up, and then of course Louisville, who 2 years ago was mentioned with Oates, was being mentioned again. That's a blue blood job, so you have to pay your coach well. And I think Greg Byrne's greatest strength as an athletic director is his ability to execute coaching searches, which have been very, very clean, and the way he takes care of his coaches, which makes these guys want to come to Alabama and want to stay there. And certainly, Rob Vaughn could have waited. I know he's going to be on your show at the top of this next hour, Gary. He could have stayed at Maryland. He had the best program in the Big Ten. He could have waited for his opportunity, but he felt like Alabama was a perfect one. And he's certainly off to a great start there. And then he did a great job, did Greg Byrne, of identifying Nate Oates and Kalen DeBoer. I still don't think he gets enough credit yet for how he executed the DeBoer coaching search. It was outstanding, and he got a well-deserved raise as well. It's a great time to be a supporter of Alabama athletics.
Alabama football goes back to work on the practice field this afternoon, spring practice number 4. And, they had a week of work, and then we're off for spring break, but get back at it. Of course, spring drills will culminate with the 8A game on April 13th. This is week number 2, Drew, and they'll be busy and going to be able to start, doing a little bit of hitting. What are you looking for out of Alabama football in terms of getting back on the practice field?
Well, we'll see. Certainly heard some good things about Jalen Milroe and his work ethic and progress in week 1. They took a week off. I'm anxious to see how they they process things and how they come back from a week of basically a lot of them working out on their own. I mean, you still got new systems being implemented. Pro Day coming up on Wednesday. It's another star-studded group. It's Nick Saban's final one, but I think he's going to add to that first-round draft choice list that he did that was unprecedented at Alabama, and looking forward to that. That'll be good for Kalen DeBoer to get some more airtime as well with the NFL people, and I'm just looking to see, some of the progress, maybe the buzz coming out about offensive line development, especially progress at the offensive tackle spot, how some of these young DBs are coming along, and, how the linebackers are fitting in. I saw, a photo of Jihad Campbell, Justin Oronquo, and some of these young linebackers that are going to have a chance to develop under Kane Womack and this staff. So really looking forward to that as well. And then, Justice Haynes, this is his chance to, really, step forward as a running back. Also, Jam Miller. I know there was a lot of talk during the spring break about Robert Gillespie. I don't think he's going to Ohio State. He's making $850,000. I think it's another situation of Alabama taking care of an assistant coach, and he's got a star-studded group, as much talent as Ohio State has got. And so I think he should be very excited for these young backs and see how they develop. But certainly it's going to be an interesting week, and recruiting rolls on. They could be adding a couple to the list there and looking, and we'll see. But certainly I think everything is positive right now with Alabama football. Yeah,
I was going to go to you with recruiting. You're right. It is a big week. There were a couple visitors in yesterday, more scheduled throughout the week. And as you said, couple of guys, linebacker, 4-star linebacker safety Daryl Duke Johnson and 3-star linebacker Luke Metz, scheduled to make decisions. And it looks like Alabama's leading on both those guys, right, Drew?
Yeah, I would think so. I think it sounds very positive with both of them. I think Metz is going to be back on campus in the very near future. So before his decision, so I think Alabama's in strong position. Duke Robinson. Since he visited several days ago, I think Alabama made a big move in his recruitment. So I think Alabama could add both those kids from the state of Georgia, no doubt about it. Very excited about both of them. I think Metz is probably your prototypical middle linebacker. We'll see where Robinson ends up and where he plays. He's very, very athletic, kind of a jumbo athlete. But I think both of them are really good players, and I think Alabama and the coaching staff is excited to add them. And And I think that, when you look at the list of visitors that are going to be potentially on campus this week and into next, I think you should be very excited. I think, Courtney Morgan and that recruiting staff, so to speak, are doing a great job getting kids on campus.
Drew DeArmond with us talking some ball here on the Gary Harris Show. Let's get to basketball. Of course, what's at hand now is what you play for all year, and that's the NCAA tournament for the Crimson Tide. We'll jump into that in a moment. But Nate Oates gets a contract extension and approved and raised that makes him one of the top 5 highest paid coaches in college basketball. He's starting off at $5 million. It will escalate to $7.55 million by the final year of his contract. His buyout was increased as well, which is good for Alabama if somebody comes after him. It now sits at $18 million in the first 2 years. So just your thoughts on Nate Oates, another contract extension and a raise.
Well, I mean, it's certainly exciting for Alabama. I mean, just like I was talking about, where they put Kalen DeBoer and his staff in, they committed to them financially, and now you're seeing it with Luke Metz and Daryl Duke Johnson. Daryl Duke Johnson, the linebacker jumbo athlete. Metz and Johnson are both probably going to come on board early, and in this recruiting class. So it shows the great momentum that Alabama football has, and that Courtney Morgan and that staff, and with Kalen DeBoer hitting the ground running. Nate Oates and his staff, they've done a great job. Like I said earlier in the conversation, it's remarkable that he's already had 4 head coaches
really is.
Now under his tutelage. I mean, and a great first year for Brian Hodgson, who was behind the bench at the SEC tournament. They're going to the CBI. He got to the finals of the Sun Belt Conference tournament at Arkansas State. He's doing a great job. Antoine Petway, in his first opportunity, had a solid first year at Kennesaw State. Charlie Henry at Georgia Southern, and now, Austin Claunch at UTSA. I mean, that's remarkable that he's already helped 4 coaches reach that goal, and it will make Alabama a destination for outstanding assistant basketball coaches. I think he'll have no problem replacing Austin Claunch, and certainly I think Preston Murphy, who got a raise, has done a great job as kind of director of player personnel and bringing in players, certainly, and Ryan Pannone is just a grinder. I mean, just reading about him, that great piece that Nick Kelly put together for the Tuscaloosa News. I mean, that look behind the curtain shows you how this staff works. I mean, you heard Nate Oates in his press conference, the other day talking about how they'd already started work on the College of Charleston, and certainly that'll be an interesting matchup. I mean, they play at a very fast tempo. They like to space the floor too, so Alabama's going to have to be ready. But I think the biggest key for the Tide is they've got to be healthy. They got to get Riley and Griffin completely back. Hopefully that'll be the case. Same way with Latrell Wright. So they need all their guys. They're not going to be a great defensive team. This group never is, and they don't have the rim protection. But they're extremely good offensively when they're in rhythm. And if they can give you 7 to 8 minutes of good defense, they can certainly win. And I think Nate Oates, what he's done, and this is nearing the end of his 5th year, is remarkable. 4 straight NCAA tournaments, 2 in SEC tournaments, 2 regular season championships. And who knows how this team's going to react. I know some people are worried about 2 years ago. I think this team is different than that team. Certainly, I think a lot of the struggles down the stretch of this season have been due to injury. Hopefully, that early exit from the SEC tournament will help in the situation that they got some extra rest, and they're not playing until basically late afternoon, early evening on Friday. So it gives you a chance to get your legs underneath you. And certainly, the College of Charleston, while it's a difficult matchup, it's one I think that can be beneficial for Alabama because of the style of play. And then when you look at what could potentially be your round of 32 matchup, Grand Canyon is another team under Bryce Drew that plays fast, that plays up tempo, and is athletic. I think that would play in favor of Alabama. And then certainly it would be a difficult one with St. Mary's because of Randy Bennett's, pedigree. He's a great coach, and they play a slower tempo, and they're physical. But again, I don't think they're San Diego State physical. So I think all in all, when you look at the draw Alabama got, it's not a bad draw. It's certainly not an easy one, but I think it's one where Alabama can have success if they can get Riley and Griffin and Latrell Wrightsell back and get locked in on this 4-team pod.
Drew, when you look at Alabama basketball, this is 4 straight NCAA tournaments under Oates. Of course, the Herb Jones team was a number 2 seed. 2 years ago, they were a 6 seed and got knocked off in the first round by Notre Dame. Last year, the number 1 overall seed, Sweet 16. The Herb Jones team and last year's team were Final Four caliber. There's no denying that. They got to the round of 16. This year's team, I don't see it that way. But that's a great thing about the tournament. You got a chance to prove people wrong. But if this year you make it to the Sweet 16, I'm not saying that's the ceiling. If you get there, you want to win and go to the Elite 8, obviously. Nobody thought Mark Godfrey's 2014 was an Elite 8 team, and they made it. So, but if this team makes it to the Sweet 16, Drew, would you feel like, unlike those 2 teams that I referenced, where you felt like they could have gone further or, would have, the ceiling was higher, this team makes it to Sweet 16, I would consider that a success. What about you?
Well, I think the season's already been a success. I mean, when you talk about how much talent Alabama lost, and they only brought back Ryland Griffin and Mark Sears that played much at all, and you lost your entire coaching staff, and you rebuilt your entire organization. You played the most difficult schedule, in my opinion, of anybody in college basketball. 10 of your 11 losses were to NCAA tournament teams. The 11th was to Ohio State, who was on the cusp of making it. I think this has been a really good year for Alabama basketball. If Reitzel doesn't get hurt, I think they could have won the SEC regular season. And now they still have a chance to rewrite the end with a run to the NCAA tournament. And I just want to let fans know, there's people that were disappointed in how last year ended, but a lot of that had to also do with health and Brandon Miller getting hurt. But it's never a bad year when you get to the NCAA tournament, or especially when you get to the Sweet 16. Those runs are hard. It's hard to win an NCAA tournament game, much less get to the Sweet 16. If Alabama could do it for the 3rd time in 5 years, that would be amazing. And then give them an opportunity to potentially play a North Carolina or someone like that in the Sweet 16. So I just think this Alabama team has really overachieved, but I still think they have more that they can accomplish. I think they believe that as well. I think they earned their number 4 seed because of who they played and how they played. Certainly, it was disappointing to lose to Florida, but that's a very good Florida basketball team that they lost to in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. I'll be honest, I've watched SEC basketball closely since the early 90s, around 1990 going forward, 89 to 90. And to be honest with you, this is the best I've ever seen the SEC in the top 8. That quarterfinal Friday, and I was there, was outstanding. I mean, all of those teams, I've got all the SEC teams winning their first-round matchup. We'll see if that happens. I've got an SEC team in my Final Four. I think the SEC, by the end of the year, I didn't think that at the start of conference play, and I didn't think it at the midpoint, but I thought by the SEC tournament, the SEC was as good as any league in the country, if not the best. I thought that top 8 could match up with anyone, and I think they can do damage in the NCAA tournament, and we're going to see starting Thursday if I'm right.
Yeah, we will. We got 8 teams from the SEC in, and of course Tennessee with the 2 seed is the highest. So you think that there's a Final Four team among this group?
Yeah, I've got the Tennessee Vols in the Final Four. I know a lot of people have written them off because of that loss to Mississippi State, but I think it's going to do them some good. I think they got a good draw. I think Kentucky got a good draw. Quite frankly, I think Auburn got shafted. I think they should have been the 3, and Kentucky should have been the 4. Because of what Bruce Pearl's team did, and I picked Auburn to win the SEC tournament. I liked their depth, I liked their draw, and then as soon as Tennessee went out, I knew that I thought Auburn had opened up for Auburn, and so I think that now I think Auburn's draw is brutal in the tournament. I've got Auburn in the Sweet 16, but then they play UConn, and UConn might be the best team in the country. And do I think Auburn would have a chance against UConn? Absolutely, but I think it's going to be very difficult. But we'll see what happens. I've got Alabama. I think Alabama, if the pieces fall right, they could go to the Elite 8. I think Alabama could win the pod this weekend, and then if they played in North Carolina, they've already beat North Carolina in the past. Okay, and this is a good North Carolina team that's experienced. But I think Alabama, with their style of play, could give North Carolina some issues. But then in the Elite 8, I've got Arizona and Alabama, and they played earlier this year. And I think Arizona, with their physicality and their front line and their guard play, would be a very difficult matchup for Alabama. But again, we'll see. I think the SEC can do damage. I think Alabama and Auburn are built for it. I think the Samford Bulldogs, Kansas better be ready to roll. They better be having some people healthy, because I think Bucky Ball could give them some problems, and I think UAB could give San Diego State issues, though I do like the Aztecs to ultimately win that game and then Auburn to put out the Aztecs. But I think the SEC is as strong as it's ever been, and I'm excited to see how the conference does in March Madness.
Yeah, 4 teams from the state of Alabama in the tournament, 8 teams from the SEC, so a lot of interest in March Madness, even more so than usual. Great stuff as always, Drew. If people want to find you and follow you on your different outlets, tell them how they can do it.
Yeah, sure. Drew D, 977 ESPN on the X account. Also 977 ESPN for our station. All of our content's on our SoundCloud page and on 977ESPN.com. We had a great conversation today with Dwayne Rebold, who's the special assistant to Bucky McMillan and who was his college coach, and told us some great stuff. Bucky was all set to walk on at Alabama, Gary, before he got offered to walk on at Birmingham Southern, and then became a 2-year starter and all-conference player, and was also as a redshirt freshman, their 6th man, and even had chances to play at an Alabama or Auburn or an SEC school as a senior when he was going to graduate from Birmingham Southern College and, play his last year. And he decided to become the JV basketball coach instead and not use his last year of eligibility and start that journey at Mountain Brook High School, and we see where he is now. So certainly we always enjoy being on the Gary Harris Show on Tide 109, and we're really excited to see what happens this week with Duke Johnson, if Alabama can get him and Luke Metz in football, and then what happens on the hardwood. And let's not forget to give a shout-out to Christy Curry and the ladies. They make the tournament again. Tough draw in Austin, as we know, but certainly excited to see them compete against Florida State.
Yeah, and tough break with Jessica Timmons being out with a knee injury, but good for Christy Curry, too. All right, thank you, Drew. Good stuff.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, 9:52. Real quick mention that prom season is here, and it's time to look your best, young gentlemen. You can do that at T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery University Mall. Go by and see Tom and the crew, and they'll hook you up. You want to be traditional, they've got that. If you want to be flashy, they can certainly help you with that. You want to be memorable on your prom night, you want to look your best, and remember those prom pictures last for ever. So look your best at T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. We'll be back to wrap up hour number 1 right after this. Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Los Tarascos with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. Touchdown, Alabama! On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, wrapping it up for hour number 1. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way of banking. Find out more at alabamacu.com. Coming up in in hour number 2, we're going to get it started with Alabama baseball coach Rob Vaughn. Looking forward to that conversation. The Crimson Tide is rolling. And also we'll get to more of your phone calls. Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline in the second hour. And we'll continue to talk about Alabama football back at work this week on the practice field. So a busy second hour is coming up right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. Again, I want to thank Wyatt Fulton pinch hitting this week on just about every show here, and of course doing his show as well. And but we're ready to roll for a second hour. So you got it right here on the Gary Harris Show. Quick reminder: download the app. Haven't mentioned that in a while, but that's just the absolute best way to get the program. If you download the app, you can take us with you anywhere you go. Also, Tide109.com. Great website with a lot of information available. Also, we podcast all our interviews there. So remember the app. Remember Tide109.com as well, of course, over the air on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. 1 hour in the books. Another hour of the Gary Harris Show is on the way. So keep it dialed in to Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC.
I'm attorney
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. from the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monty Bolaños.
Beginning in the NBA, where things went to overtime in Sacramento.
Back to Domas. Dribble handoff comes to Malik Monk. Probes, circles to his left, stops. 18-footer on the way. He's got another one. Wow! Malik Monk, 8 points in overtime for a 113-107 lead.
Kings Radio Network on the call. They defeated the Grizzlies 121-111. Malik Monk was responsible for half of the points that the Kings scored in overtime, while the Lakers cruised past the Hawks 136-105. D'Angelo Russell made history by tying Nick Van Exel's franchise record for threes in a season with 183. He finished with 27 points and 10 assists. On the ice, the Capitals beat the Flames 5-2. Washington future Hall of Famer Alexander Ovechkin had 2 goals to move 52 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
Northwood District 2 Councilman Woodrow Washington has been selected by the council to replace new council president Christy Bobo as the council president pro tem. Ground has been broken on the new River Run Sports Complex at Northport, and during last night's meeting, $815,000 for engineering costs was allocated for the sports complex. Also, $8.9 million for a new pump station on Highway 82. And the late Frank Swede Kendall was inducted into the Alabama High School Sports Hall of Fame. He was the head football coach at Tuscaloosa High School.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, everybody, hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. I'm Gary Harris. I got Wyatt Fulton with me this week. He's right there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline at 205-342-9904. This hour of the Gary Harris Show brought to you as always by Patterson Comer, attorneys at law. Paul Patterson and Mike Comer, feet on the ground in West Alabama. I think that's so important. If you need a personal injury attorney, I don't know about you. I'm not calling one of those big 800 firms. I'm going to deal with Patterson Comer where I can look them in the eye, sit with them in the office, talk about my situation, knowing they're going to be with me all of the way. Paul Patterson is in Tuscaloosa, 205-345-1000. Mike Comer's in Northport at 205-759-3939. Remember, the commitment to serve our clients does not stop at the end of the workday. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of services performed by other lawyers.
And I'm excited to jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline and welcome in the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide baseball team. We've had several visits with Coach Vaughn. Excited to have him on, man. The season is rocking and rolling, and it's only going to get better. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning, man. I'm doing great. How about y'all?
It's terrific and good to have you. You're rolling 17-3 overall, 2-1 in the SEC. And let's start right there because you opened up conference play this past weekend at home against the number 5 ranked Tennessee Volunteers, and they have been rolling the last few years. Friday night, you took it on the chin, man. You got your Friday night starter Ben Hess out there, and you lose 11-3, and bounce back and win Saturday 6-3, and then in just one of those games that is an instant classic, as we like to call them. You hang on to win 7-6 over the Vols on Sunday, and you get that series victory. I know they all count one, and I know every weekend's like a little mini regional in the SEC, but a sweet way to start off with a series victory over the Tennessee Vols.
No question, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just how we did it. You know, I've been preaching to these kids. You know, we went through non-conference schedule, and really, I mean, you had 2 bumps in the road. You know, one in the Dallas Baptist team that you lose an extra innings, but it's a good game, and then another one on the road to Southern Miss last week that, again, you get to tie and run up to the plate in the 9th, and you got a chance to end on a line out. So we hadn't really kind of gotten smacked yet, you know, and you know it's coming. That's right. Just life in this league. Is those tough ones are coming, and I was so proud of kind of the resiliency, the grit, the toughness that these kids showed by bouncing back. And to your point, you know, our big guy gets roughed up on Friday, and we stick with it. We stay together and played 2 really fantastic games to finish the weekend. So good way to start, long way to go.
Yeah, Saturday you bounce back, you get a 6-3 win, and then on Sunday, as I said, just one of those special SEC ball games, back and forth. You're swinging the bats well, Tennessee's swinging the bats well. They jumped out on top. You come back, you got the lead. They come back and get the lead, and then Gage hits that huge 3-run blast in the 8th after their guy in left field made a incredible catch against the wall, and you feel like you're in good shape at 7-5. Then uncharacteristically for your club, you have a couple of errors. Next thing you look up, it's 7-6. The bases are loaded, and Aiden Mosa comes in, and man, I mean, he battled his rear end off and gets that strikeout to end it for you.
No doubt. I told our boys afterwards, I said, man, I was proud of you guys, but we made that a heck of a lot harder on ourselves than we needed to be. We drop a fly ball in foul territory, and then just the way baseball works, man, next guy comes up and that guy the next pitch singles through the left side to lead off the inning. And, you're kind of a risky. I thought Heiberger made some great pitches, and we just weren't helping him out. We had a uncharacteristic error at third there, and you get to a sticky spot. And that was the most proud of anybody I probably was the entire weekend was Mosa, and he went out and, he got roughed up on Friday. He got 1 inning, 4 runs. Hasn't really been himself the last couple weeks, just trying to refine some things, trying to clean up some things. And, JJ and I looked at each other, and it's like, if we're going to be good, Aiden Mosa's got to be good. He's been working. He's ready. He's prepared. Let's go send it with our guy and see what happens. And we thought he was a good matchup for those guys. Gets a punch out. Then we were kind of a little bit more cautious with the next hitter. It was not as good of a matchup for Aiden, knowing that, hey, if we walk him, we're up 2, we're good. Just keep executing pitches. And shoot, Aiden comes up to the next guy. It was a really good matchup for him, spun breaking balls, and got us out of there in a big spot. So that's huge for us, huge for him. A lot of really good things, even though we made it a little tougher on ourselves. A really gritty way to finish that thing.
Yeah, and recognition, I know as a coach, you don't want to be, focused on it because you got a job to do pretty much every day when you're coaching a baseball team, but some major recognition for this program for the first time in I think it's 18 years. Alabama's in the top 10 of the USA Today coaches poll following that series victory over Tennessee. Now you got to go play tonight down in Montgomery against Alabama State. We'll get to that in the weekend coming up as well at Georgia, but it's nice to be winning games on the field and then getting recognized for it with the top 10 spot in the coaches poll. How do you feel about that? I know, again, you don't want to focus on it, but it's nice recognition.
No doubt. I think it's great recognition for our kids. It's great recognition for the hard work they put in. It just kind of validates some of the work that they've done. But, the one thing is so funny. I only got to work, I call it alongside him. I think I saw him twice the whole time I was here. But Coach Saban's been just such a mainstay here for the last 17 years. And from afar, I feel like every press conference, every nugget that he ever put out, any coach that's worth anything was listening, paying attention, saying, how can we take that for our team? And, that's what this is. This recognition. I'm proud of it for our kids. I think it's great for our kids. I think it's great for the recruiting front. But at the end of the day, it's such a trap for young people because at the end of this thing, there's 8 teams that get to go to the promised land out there in Omaha and compete to be the best in the country that year. And we're a heck of a long way from doing that. I think a lot of teams will struggle early and figure it out late, and you have vice versa, guys that play great early that can't figure it out down the stretch. And so for us, it's just about taking the next step. And that's what I talked to our players about after the game. I said, enjoy this, but that's the thing about baseball. It's on to the next one. And you see so many teams in college baseball. Duke goes into Wake Forest a week and a half ago, takes 2 or 3 from the number 1 team in the country at the time, and then goes and drops a midweek game to Ryder. That's what normal, ordinary teams do. And if we want to be more than ordinary, we'll ring the bell tonight in Montgomery. And I'm looking forward to seeing the guys go out and compete a little bit tonight.
Alabama baseball coach Rob Vaughn with us here on the Gary Harris Show. Yeah, let's get to that because you're about to go on a 5-game road swing, and I think it's really neat. Of course, you got Georgia this weekend, SEC series in Athens, but and you got Belmont next Tuesday night up in Huntsville, which I think is a great game for Alabama to play. And I think it's so cool tonight that you're going to Montgomery. You're not just playing Alabama State and giving them an opportunity for their fans to get excited, but you're playing them on campus at the Wheeler Watkins Baseball Complex. I know it's exciting for them. It's exciting for the baseball fans for Alabama down there in Central Alabama, but I think that's just really cool that Alabama baseball is going on campus to play Alabama State tonight, Coach.
I think, the way things are done, everywhere is done a little bit different everywhere you go. And shoot, my time at Maryland, we saw what it did for the community when I was at Maryland, when we'd go to play University of Maryland, Baltimore County on their campus, when we go play Towson on their campus. it's good for the state of baseball in Alabama. And, you know, Jose's a great dude, man. I got to know him, you know, as soon as I got here. Great guy. And him and I talked, and, you know, he kind of floated it out there. We were talking about games. He said, you know, I wish we could play at the Biscuit Stadium. I was like, Jose, let's just play on campus. I'm good with that. As long as we got the facilities to house it, let's do it. And he was kind of shocked. He was like, you would do that? I was like, yeah, man, it's baseball. Let's line up and play. As long as you got 90-foot bases and a 60-foot, 6-inch mound, let's rock and roll. So it's going to be fun. Be a good test for our kids. Hopefully get a good turnout and be a good thing for Alabama State as well. And at the end of the day, man, we're all, as coaches in this state, we're all in it together. We want to see the sport of baseball continue to grow in the state of Alabama, and I think this is another great opportunity to help enhance that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's going to be fun. I think it'll be a standing room only down there this evening as well. And then this weekend, as we said, you go on the road for your SEC Road Series, first time over in Athens to play Georgia. What are your expectations for that series, and tell us about their ball club?
You hit the nail on the head a few minutes ago. You know, I felt that. I talked to one of my buddies who he coached at Kentucky for a few years. He's the pitching coach, Jimmy Bellinger, over at Clemson now, and he had told me, he said, man, every SEC weekend feels like a regional, doesn't it? And I said, well, shoot, that first one sure as heck did. So yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. You know, they went up to Kentucky. Kentucky plays a pretty unique style of baseball as far as SEC goes. A little more gadgety, a little more bunt, runs, hit and runs, and just different stuff. It's not necessarily just line up and hit and do it that route. Now, they can still do that. But it's kind of interesting. You know, Georgia dropped all three of them to Kentucky up there in not great fashion. They kind of got smacked around a little bit. But they've got probably the best hitter in college baseball, and Charlie Condon there. I mean, the guy was hitting 500 and leading the nation in homers going into the weekend. I mean, just a dangerous hitter. You know, all the reports, and we haven't dove into Georgia yet, but all the reports we get on them is it's a ridiculous offense. And we saw that in Tennessee this weekend, just a really deep lineup, really long lineup. And their new head coach is an unbelievable pitching coach. So they're going to keep growing and getting better. They were elite in their non-conference schedule, shoot better than we were in our non-conference schedule, elite in that. And we know it's going to be a dogfight. You know, they took it on the chin this weekend and lost all three. So they ain't going to want to do that at home, and they'll be ready to rock. And we're going to have to give our best effort, because winning anywhere, you saw in the SEC this weekend, home teams won every single series in the SEC this weekend. It ain't easy to win in this league on the road, and it's going to take a good effort from the boys.
Absolutely. And boy, if you could go over there and get that series on the road, it would be fantastic, as we said too. Real quick thought before I ask you a little bit about the roster and we wrap it up with you. Because I don't know if I'll visit with you again, but you mentioned what you're doing tonight, going on campus. And then next Tuesday night, going to Huntsville, man. Toyota Field, Belmont coming down, short drive for them. Great facility. That ought to be an electric atmosphere next Tuesday night. I know you don't want to get too far ahead, but just go ahead and preview that game and what it means for the fans of Alabama baseball up in North Alabama.
No, you're exactly right. Just kind of some of the same thing. You know, playing at some of these pro parks, these great venues where they pack it out. It's just something we're looking forward to. It's going to be a good test. Again, you got a Belmont team that's playing good baseball right now as well, and probably closer to a home game for them at times, even though it's in our state there. But it'll be a good matchup for us up there. And you know, we're starting to try to do more of this. I've talked to Butch Thompson over at Auburn. Butch is a friend of mine, even though I don't think we're allowed to be friends with Auburn people, but Butch is a friend of mine, and you know, we talked about it, like even trying to talk about renewing that midweek matchup with them and kind of moving it around the state, playing in some different venues around the state year to year. That no doubt, if we're playing that in Montgomery, it's a little bit more of a home game for them, but maybe we play one up in Birmingham, maybe we play one up in Huntsville, but just kind of moving it around the state and trying to do some things. So we're in the really early stages of that, but looking to continue doing that, because I think it's just good for the state of baseball in Alabama for us to play these teams in these venues and let some people around the state get a look at, you know, at multiple teams there.
Oh, I'm with you, man. I love it. I mean, you know, friends that I talk to, if Alabama's going to play a game in Mobile or play a game in Montgomery or play a game in Huntsville or play a game over at Jacksonville State, you know, people in that area, man, they get pumped when the Alabama Crimson Tide comes to town, and it's great. It's great for baseball. Before we close it out, again, you come here as a first-year head coach. You left, you know, arguably the best program in the Big Ten. You'd built something special there at Maryland, but you come to Alabama. You're blending a roster with guys that were here, with transfers, with freshmen, and again, I'm kind of a novice. I love baseball, but I don't have the trained eye that you do. But when I watch your club play, I guess the thing that I noticed, especially over the weekend against Tennessee, is it looks like they've been together for a long time, man. The transfers, the unity you see on the club, the way they play, it just looks like a ball team that has been coached by the same guy and been together for 3 or 4 years to me. I think that I mean that as a compliment, but that's what I see with your club. It's pretty remarkable to me.
No doubt. And I mean, we brought in, we had one returning position player starter, and, you know, the emergence of guys like Bryce Evelyn has been huge. That guy's here. He's been here. He's having a heck of a senior year. I'm so happy for him right now and how he's playing. But I think that was a huge piece as well of, you know, Coach Morrison and Coach Papio coming with me from Maryland is, I've been with Coach Papio. This is my 12th year with him. He played for me for 4 years, has been with me for the last 8. Coach Morrison, this is my 3rd. So we kind of had a pretty good feel of the kind of player that works within our system. And I think, you know, if you've heard me talk at all, it's always about people, and it's about who they are and how they go about their business. And I think what those guys, along with JJ, did such a great job doing this summer is not only just bringing in talent, but bringing in talent that believes and acts and does things the way we believe it to be done. And, you know, from TJ McCants to Gage Miller, who was already kind of on the roster when we got here, even though he's an incoming JUCO guy, to all these guys up and down the lineup, all these pitchers. It's just a lot of our kind of kids. And I think when you get that and you get people that think alike, that's just kind of how guys blend together. And, you know, we've kind of forged them in the fire a little bit. We talk about that a lot in the way we compete and the way we do things in the fall. And I think some shared adversity really helps bond kids and bring them together. And those guys I think you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't feel like this group's been together for 6 months. It feels like they've been together for the last 3 to 4 years. And I think that's such a tribute to what Pat, Mo, and JJ do day in and day out to bring the right kids and put them together in one unit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that struck me over the weekend, man. This team just looks like it's been together. The response from the fan base has been incredible. From the right field Ragers, the Grand Slammers. This past weekend, you're coming off spring break. Everybody's not back. I know Friday night in particular, but the whole weekend, the fans, the atmosphere, it was electric.
No doubt. And I didn't quite know what to expect either. I know, back at Maryland when we had spring break, that place emptied out and we'd have 2 weeks of anytime you saw a home conference series on the schedule, you kind of were bummed out about it. So I didn't know what to expect. And man, the crowds, especially on Saturday and Sunday, man, those crowds were unbelievable. And the student section's been awesome. Like, they've been getting after it. They've been showing up consistently, but in general, like they created a crazy environment for us this week. And I think that matters. I think that's why it's so hard to win on the road in this league, because students and fans do show up. And I thought they were incredible this week. And the Rangers have been unbelievable. They've, I kind of started something a couple weeks ago where I write a note on a ball and send it out with Evan Slide, our captain, before every game, and he throws it up into the student section. So we've had some fun with them, and they keep showing up and bringing energy. And I tell you what, they made the Joe a really hard place to play this weekend, that's for sure.
Sure did. And one final thought, you got a dose of Alabama-Tennessee right off the bat in your first SEC series, one of the great rivalries in the Southeastern Conference. And, we know Tennessee baseball. They're aggressive. They've got a little bit of a reputation for maybe being a little bit arrogant and chippy, but it was competitive baseball, but there was a lot of sportsmanship. I noticed finally on Sunday, you and Coach Vitello had a nice handshake there at the end of the game. It was competitive. It was aggressive on both sides, but the sportsmanship was there. I thought that was nice because this rivalry has a tendency sometimes not to be always the most pleasant, but competitive baseball, but a lot of sportsmanship was shown. I thought that was pretty cool too.
No question. I mean, I've known Tony for years. Tony recruited me out of high school. I've known Tony for a long time. Frank Anderson was their pitching coach, was the head coach at Oklahoma State when I was coming out of college. Their video guy was the recruiting coordinator at Kansas State that recruited me out of high school. So I've known those guys for a long time. And it's what you want in athletics. Mm-hmm. It's, hey, we're friends, but when that game starts, we're going to line it up and go. And then after the game, we're going to shake hands and wish each other well and go our separate ways. And so it was, coming in, you hear some of that, and I see some of it from the outside. And, Tennessee does have that reputation, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I thought our dugout, I thought their dugout, it was two teams kind of doing war against each other. And then at the end of it, we shook hands, moved on, and kind of go our separate ways. So I agree with that assessment. I thought it was just what you want out of college sports. There was emotion, there was passion, but you didn't cross that line, and that was good to see.
I did see a couple pictures on social media, though. A few stogies were lit up, Coach.
They were, man. I got my first taste of that. Smoke 'em, you got 'em, baby. It was fun.
That's right. Coach, man, I really appreciate your time. Good luck tonight down in Montgomery and Athens this weekend, and keep it rolling, man. Thanks a lot.
You got it, guys. Thank y'all. Roll Tide.
All right, Coach Rob Vaughn, Alabama baseball. Boy, I tell you what a job he is doing, and a lot of excitement around what the Crimson Tide baseball program is right now and what it can be in the future. All right, it's 10:19 here on the Gary Harris Show. We're going to take time out, and we'll come back. We're wide open for phone calls when we return on the Gary Harris Show, so give us a ring on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline, 205-342-9904. More of the Gary Harris Show coming up. Stay with us. 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's management dream team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Cool and dry today with a sunny sky, the high 57. Clear tonight, not as cold as last night, the low 36. Tomorrow, sunny and warmer, the high 71. Thursday, clouds move in, a chance of rain Thursday night, the high at 69. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 43 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:22. Welcome back in the Gary Harris Show. Wyatt, I got to tell you, not just because he's kind of becoming a friend of the show, and we love interviewing coaches when we get an opportunity at the University of Alabama. But I am so impressed with Rob Vaughn, and you knew he was a good coach based on what he was doing at Maryland, right? But to come in here in this first year and have a team that last year went to the Super Regional, came within a game of the World Series, but lost a lot of talent off that club. We're able to keep the pitching coach, Jason Jackson. Few guys that were holdovers from the previous roster, but then hit the recruiting trail and bring in transfers. And I'm wondering why, I thought that really resonated with Coach. But this team, when you watch them play, they really do look like a team that's been together for a while. But this is a new ball club, man. You're talking about a new staff. You're talking about very few holdover players. You're talking about freshmen and transfers. And watching them play this past weekend, I mean, that looked like a club that had juniors and seniors that had been playing together for 3 or 4 years.
They got a great camaraderie on that team over there. And, I think that's one thing that Rob Vaughn does a really good job of. And I'm not just saying this because he may still be listening to the show, but I think what he does a great job of, building those relationships and having these guys, have a reason to play for one another. Mm-hmm. I think they do a great job. I love what he did with the number 3 with that becoming a tradition. And so I think he's doing a really, really good job getting this team kind of built together and, in a weird situation, given everything that ended, the way everything ended with the previous baseball coach.
How good do you think Justin LeBron, the freshman shortstop, is going to be? He's going to be special, right?
He's going to be a special
first rounder down the road.
I think he definitely could be. I think he and probably Alton Davis are going to be 2 of the cornerstones for this program.
Yeah, you look at LeBron, 6'2", which is tall for a shortstop, 175, but so athletic, so smooth. I mean, he's one of those guys that I hate to use this term because pretty much everybody that plays college baseball to some degree is a natural. All right. You wouldn't be at that level without talent. I don't care how hard you work. It's like that Christian McCaffrey commercial. Have you seen that? They're both named Christian McCaffrey, but one poor dude, he would never play, in the NFL no matter how hard he worked. And then you got the real Christian McCaffrey. So they all work hard but you got to have gifts, man. Justin LeBron just is so smooth, but you were getting a giggle out of that. Christian McCaffrey commercial's cool, isn't it?
I do really like that commercial.
Because that guy, that guy really is named Christian McCaffrey. The other guy.
Wait, do what?
The real Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But the other guy in the commercial, he really is named Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
really is.
Cool, actually.
It really is. It's not just a commercial. He really is Christian McCaffrey. But they couldn't be more polar opposite. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about with sports. I mean, everybody who plays college baseball is a talented guy. But, you know, some guys are grinders and some guys have, you know, overcome maybe a little less talent. But in Justin LeBron, you just see the talent oozing, man. He is such a smooth operator, and he can swing the stick too now. And, you know, you bring him as a freshman, but the transfers, of course, Coach Vaughn had a lot of connections, obviously, at other areas of the country, and he's bringing in some transfers, you know, from guys that he's familiar with. But I tell you this, having a guy like McCants come over from Ole Miss, TJ McCants, with that kind of experience and that kind of talent, and he is a terrific center fielder. But McCants was good at Ole Miss, but I think he's blossomed at Alabama. I mean, he just gets a hit in every game. This is a fun baseball team to watch. And now I don't want to get too excited because, you know, you feel good, and then the first time you lose a series in the SEC, it can be, you know, it can put you back, and there's no guarantees any weekend. But I think this Alabama baseball team has got a chance to do something special. And to win that series against Tennessee, I don't think I'm, you know, overselling here. That was huge. That was absolutely huge. All right, before we get to the break, let's jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline and welcome in Robbie. Good morning, Robbie.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Doing well, buddy. What's going on?
Good. Just out doing some work, checking some jobs, and just listening to Coach Vaughn, and he's awesome. Like you said, you got to like him. You like the way he's got his team playing, too.
I do. Yeah, impressive all the way around. Impressive to talk to him. And you played, Robbie Glenn played baseball at Alabama, so you know what I'm talking about. Of course, in those days, it was easier to keep rosters together than it is now, but this roster that Alabama's put together has so many moving parts. I mean, you've got a few guys that were coming back from the previous team, but not many. You've got freshmen coming in. You got transfers that Coach Vaughn is bringing in that he's familiar with. You got a couple that just wanted to come in and play for Alabama. And I watched them play this past weekend, and I thought, again, I just thought that team's been together 3 or 4 years, man. That's the way they look on the field. It's amazing.
It does. It does. It looks like they've got good unity. Like you said, some of them look like they just want to be there at Bama, and that's big. You like to see that because they're getting after it. They're scrappy. And to take a team like Tennessee and take 2 out of 3 after taking that one Friday on the chin, like you said, that was just a great weekend. Could say more about who was Saturday's pitcher, Greg Ferron.
Yeah, Ferron. Yeah. He transferred in from Louisville. Yeah.
Yeah, big left-handed pitcher, just in control of every pitch. And don't know the kid, but he after the game interview or the next day he was sharp.
He's 6'6", Robbie. He's 6'6".
Big boy.
Yeah.
And staying at 95 from the left side, just nasty. I like the way they're all playing. I mean, now you got a cold game tonight, Alabama State, like what they're doing there, and then got to go to Georgia, tough place to play after they got swept at Kentucky. It'll be a tough series, so hopefully they could take the series there too.
Man, if you could win that series this week on the road and get out to 4-2 in the league, yeah, it would be it'd be awesome. So, but I'm enjoying this. Awesome. I'm enjoying this team, and I think they got to, as I said many times, it's 25 years now since Alabama has been to the College World Series in Omaha. 25 is long enough, man. I think this team's got potential to get there.
Yeah, they got the arms, they got the hitters. Gage Miller staying hot, set the tone. McCants, if anything, if you're going to nitpick this team at all, like he said, the coach said, they make it interesting with the errors, costly errors, and I still think a few balls that drop in the outfield, like, as a pitcher, former pitcher, you see these pop-ups, you're like, oh, that's caught, and then they just drop. I can't stand that. I know it's tough. That's nitpicking because this team's so good. But, if they can take 2 out of 3 or sweep Georgia, because it's going to get tougher as they go.
Oh, it is. Before we go, have to hit the break. Give us a Striker Strong update.
Striker had a bad day yesterday, but he came through last night and this morning really good, so I was able to get out of the house. Just the tournament's taken off, trying to help some other kids with brain injuries along the way. We went and met with some more kids and helped them with some equipment a couple weeks ago. Just anywhere we can with Striker, and bless his heart, he's fighting the best we can. So we're going to help some kids along the way the best we can. with his charity, StrikerStrong.org.
Yeah, StrikerStrong.org, folks, if you want to get involved. And not just for Striker, but like Robbie said, for other kids too, because y'all are branching out trying to help as many folks as you can.
Many as we can. We're going to get out there anywhere we can that needs help.
StrikerStrong.org. All right, Robbie, I got to hit the break real quickly. What do you got?
All
How
right,
far do you have? How far do you have Alabama men's basketball going in your bracket?
I got them winning the first two, and then but that's get to the Sweet 16. So I just couldn't get them any further. I know that's bad. I just didn't want to be an Alabama homer.
Well, Sweet 16 for this team would be really, really, really cool, I think.
It would be really good. I just don't like when we come across guys that bully ball us, and it's a long season. So, but hey, it's still a great team to watch. I like the excitement.
Thank you, buddy.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
All right. We'll get to the break, and it's 10:31. Real quickly, I do want to mention to you, as I like to say, the Y is ready when you're ready for the Y. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa, right downtown, conveniently located, 2300 13th Street. Get by and see them today. They've got everything that you need. The facility is top-notch. The staff is top-notch. All it takes is a little bit of effort on your part to get in there and get involved and get going. And it's March 19. You know what? Say you got a beach trip planned for June 15th. You got 3 months, man, and then you can do a lot in 12 weeks. I guarantee you, especially with the Y. YMCA at Tuscaloosa. The Y is ready when you are. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be back with more right after this.
This is Old Colony Golf Course. Is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:36. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris and Wyatt Fulton. Of course, Wyatt will be staying on the radio with T-Town Sports Daily, his show coming up at 11 a.m. Until noon. And, of course, the Miller's Edge, noon until 2 with Corey and Kristen Miller. Then Fowler will take you home with the game, 2 until 6. All sports talk, local all day. You just don't – I don't know of another station. Wyatt, maybe you've researched it since you do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Even in the big markets, they'll have a morning show, maybe they'll have an afternoon show, but usually they'll supplement their lineup with a couple national shows. You know how that works, either ESPN or Fox or CBS Sports Radio. To have an all local lineup from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., I guess with the Stingray show, it even goes longer into the evening. I don't know that there's another sports talk station in the country doing that.
It's
rare.
Looking at places to work, it was something really impressive that I thought with, like you said, having so many different shows from just a ton of different perspectives. I mean, you got former players with, Martin Houston in the morning, then Corey and Christian in the midday. Yeah. We've got people who have been in the radio and television business for years with you and Ryan Fowler. And then we've got, basketball coaches with Wimp and Barry. And then there's me, new guy on the scene. So it's a lot of good content throughout the day, and it's very enjoyable. I was always listening to Tide 100.9 before I even thought about working here. Yeah,
just to have it all local. That's what makes it unique, is that, again, even in the bigger markets, heck, even in Birmingham, they supplement their lineup with, syndicated shows and a national show in the afternoon. But we just stay local here, which is pretty cool. All right, March Madness. But there's also something going on here, which is just odd to me. You got teams playing in the NCAA tournament, and then you got the NIT struggling now because, let's just be honest, there's a lot of teams that, if they're not in the NCAA tournament, don't necessarily want to play in the NIT anymore, and their roster may not look the same because we're allowing guys to go right into the portal, which just absolutely is awful to me, especially if you want to keep the NIT, which is the oldest national tournament in the country, not the NCAA tournament, but the NIT is older than the NCAA tournament and has so much history and tradition. But don't let guys hit this portal right after the season ends. I mean, I'll give you an example. Why? Let's say you got a team that went, had a really good year, and there's several of them that, got that didn't make it in the NCAA tournament, Indiana State, St. John's, others, simply because we had some bracket busters. But let's say you've had a really good year and you're disappointed you didn't go into the NCAA tournament. But the NIT, not only can you have a chance to play for a championship, a national championship. It's not the NCAA tournament, but it's the NIT. And you have a chance maybe to build momentum. UAB played in the NIT last year and went all the way to the championship game. And now here they are in the NCAA tournament. But now what's happening is we've made everything about the NCAA tournament, and I get it. So the NIT is already a little bit secondary. And then you have these guys, let's say you're coaching at a team that's qualified to be in the NIT, but they've got 4 guys that go in the portal. Well, you're not going to want to coach your team in the NIT. That's not even the same team you played with all year. So we're just doing a disservice with this. We talk a lot about NIL, and I'm right on the front line of that. I think there's got to be standards for across the board for NIL, but the portal has got to be reworked. I mean, in football and basketball, it's just absolutely become a detriment to the overall good of the game. Listen, I get excited. Look at Alabama basketball this year. Look what Nate Oates did through the portal. With what he lost last year, if there had not been a portal, this Alabama basketball team, let's be honest, they wouldn't be in the NCAA tournament and tied for second in the SEC. Without Grant Nelson, without Estrada, without Reitzel. So I like the portal from the chance that it gives you a chance to replenish your roster. But there needs to be some common sense here. You don't need to have the portal opening up just as soon as the season ends when you've still got postseason to play. And again, it wouldn't shock me, and I don't guess I've seen one yet, Wyatt, but it wouldn't shock me if you see somebody go in the portal from an NCAA tournament team. It really wouldn't shock me.
There's some people who I follow who are a lot more in the know in the national basketball scene that have said, like, they expect it to happen, if not this year, next year, that you'll have, 7, 8 guys or 7 or 8, the 7 or 8 man in the rotation decide,
that just says,
what? This isn't worth it for me. I'm playing 5 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Let me go somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get a jump. I'm going to get in the portal, which would just seem peculiar that you play all year to get the NCAA tournament, then you have a guy that says, well, you know what, I'm moving on. But we saw it with in football. We saw Alabama lose some guys, before the college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl. That when the season was over, they were ready to move on, So anyway, I don't have an issue with the transfer rule because, again, it's kind of exciting sometimes. And I'm already, checking out a guy that somebody tipped me off to, and I don't want to say his name yet, but from another school to watch out for with Alabama as far as the portal is concerned. Because this is a guy who's a good player on a team that had a losing record. And I've been told, watch out for him. He may wind up at Alabama. So it's exciting to think about. You can bring in experienced talent to your team. At the same time, though, you lose some players. I mean, Javon Quinterly last year transferred late in the process to Memphis from Alabama. And of course, I still thought Namari Burnett would have been better served to stay here at Alabama than go to Michigan. He had a pretty good year at Michigan, but I always liked Namari Burnett. Thought he was a great shooter, good defender. Got to know his dad a little bit, and I was disappointed when they moved on to Michigan. But the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. All right, Wyatt, have you done your bracket yet? I'm going to do mine this afternoon. Have you done yours yet?
Got mine filled out. I'm still a little old school. I write it out on paper and fill it out by hand.
Yeah, I'm going to do. I printed out the old sheets. I do mine the same way. I like to look at it on a sheet of paper. How far have you got Alabama going?
I've got Alabama in a competitive loss in the second round. So I've got them winning the round of 64, but losing on Sunday in the round of 32.
To Grand Canyon or St. Mary's?
St. Mary's. They play a very similar style of basketball. I was looking at the shot chart for some of the teams in the West region, and St. Mary's and Alabama, you could have overlaid it, and I'd have told you it's the same team. It's only 3-pointers in the paint. There's no mid-range between either of those teams.
The major difference, though, is the pace of play. St. Mary's is going to play a much slower pace than Alabama. Their shooting chart may be similar, but as far as the style that they play, they're going to slow you down. And
we've seen that give Bama fits.
Yeah. So I tell you this though, and I haven't done my bracket yet, but that Grand Canyon St. Mary's game, I'm going to spend a little time on that. You know who the coach at Grand Canyon is? Bryce Drew. Scott Drew's brother. He used to be the coach at Vanderbilt.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And he's done a really good job, and they're a good team. So I'm with you, whether it's St. Mary's or Grand Canyon. I'm a little nervous. Well, I'm nervous about the Charleston game. That's my personality. Alabama could be playing, they could be a 1 seed. I was nervous last year when they were number 1 overall seed first game, and they played Corpus Christi. Remember? Over in Birmingham, Texas Corpus Christi. I was nervous about that game, so I get nervous anyway. But if Alabama gets past Charleston, I'm really nervous about this second round game, regardless of whether it's St. Mary's or Grand Canyon. I'm nervous about both of those teams. All right, 10:44. Going to take a time out here on the program, and we got one segment to go, and we're wide open for phone calls. We're done with our guest, and we'll open it up if you want to give us a ring, 205-342-9904. I'd love to hear from some of you folks. I hadn't heard from some of our regular callers today, so it'd be nice. I don't know where Tom's been today, but he usually chimes in and checks in with us. Hadn't heard from him, but we'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show right after this on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC, the Tide 109 app, and Tide109.com. All are your home for Alabama sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of The Game, we will feature Mike Detillier, WWL, the Big 870. We'll start our NCAA Tournament Bracket Challenge. We're going to have some fun with that, give you a chance to win some nice prize packages right here on The Game, starting at 2 p.m. here on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Cool and dry today with a sunny sky, the high 57. Clear tonight, not as cold as last night, the low 36. Tomorrow, sunny and warmer, the high 71. Thursday, clouds move in, a chance of rain Thursday night, the high at 69. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 45 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Roll Tide, the best sports talk, period. Your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:48. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and more issues in the ACC. Pete Thamel, ESPN, reporting that Clemson has filed suit against the Atlantic Coast Conference in Pickens County, South Carolina. Of course, Florida State has already filed a suit, so you got dueling lawsuits. The ACC is a good league. I still hope it makes it, but the top teams, man, the top programs, they're not happy with their compensation, so they're going to look to get out. And we are headed toward probably, well, we're already basically there with Pac-12. We're probably headed to 3 conferences max as far as the top tier of college football, maybe even 2. All right, let's jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline and ask about Tom, and there he is. He's avoiding me today. I had to ask you to call, Tom. That's disappointing.
No, that's not the way it goes, Gary. How are you this morning? Great show, by the way. Really enjoyed the interviews this morning. They were outstanding.
Thank you.
But I told White, don't mention my name about calling, because every time somebody throws the dishwater out over at 100.9, every time somebody throws the dishwater out the back door, I'm standing there grinning.
Yeah. You are, huh?
I ain't far off, buddy.
You're one. Let me tell you this: we got some. That's one thing about Tide. We got some really loyal listeners, man. We got some folks, and you're one of them. And some people's schedule, the morning shows fit them better. Some people's the afternoon fits them better. Some at middays. We got some that, listen to shows throughout the day. But I tell you what, I love our loyal callers, and like I said, you're one of them. What do you think about?
I enjoy the station a lot. Particularly the morning shows are my favorite. And but I was calling to talk about my concern for the basketball team this weekend. And you said it. You said you're nervous every time Alabama sees it.
I am. Listen, you've got to know me well enough, Tom. You know my personality. I'm nervous when Alabama plays Western Carolina in football.
I am too.
You're like me.
You know what? Me and my buddies go, well, they threw one for 90 yards last year against such and such. By God, they can get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what worries me about it is, I've lived through some things. Reggie Collier, Southern Miss, Lewis Lip, Southern Miss, and so forth and so on. They beat us in Legion Field against Coach Bryant. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff is always in the back of my mind about how they can get you. Stephen Garcia, we went over there. He'd been in jail for 2 weeks. DUI and everything else. They let him out of jail, and he has a game of his life against one of the best teams we ever had at Alabama. And then Coach Sanderson, he's in a tournament, and NCAA tournament, and Billy Donovan, the little bastard. I tell you what, everything he shoots, he made me sick. And I was talking to somebody this morning. They said, the only time I ever cried was after that game, and with Rick Pitino and Billy Donovan. I said, I know exactly what you mean, and then that's what worries me about this weekend. Coach O, this is Tom. You need to listen to me. It will be somebody on those teams that have not made a three all year. They'll throw the ball to, and they will not miss a shot. Be ready for it. Am I right or wrong?
Be prepared. Be prepared. Well, I will say this. When you're in the NCAA tournament, man,
Mark Garvey went through it.
We've seen some flukish games, and
wow.
I tell you this, there would be nothing. The biggest downer that I'd had. Well, we're only in March, but the biggest sports downer that I could have this year would be if Alabama goes out there Friday evening and loses that first round game.
My God.
I remember 2 years ago when they lost to Notre Dame. Remember Notre Dame had to play the play. Yeah,
yes.
And it was just a downer, man. It's one thing to, although I'll tell you the worst of all time is when and it happened to Alabama against Bruce Pearl in 2005, whatever it was, when Mark and Mark had a good team, had Kennedy Winston, and remember they played Wisconsin-Milwaukee, coached by Bruce Pearl.
Yeah,
they played the 11 a.m. Thursday game,
right,
and got beat. The Alabama plays a Friday evening game. I've always said, at least if you play a Friday evening game, you're in the tournament for 2 days. You hang, even if you lose your first one. When you play the 11 a.m. game on a Thursday and get beat, it's almost like you weren't even in the tournament, Tom. You're out before it even gets going.
I know it. You didn't even get your feet wet.
Right. And it's happened to Alabama, and you're like, my gosh, you're out of the tournament before they even get to Thursday afternoon.
I tell you, Mark had some things I thought were really good, and they'd go in there and, and this is me now. I don't know. Mark would argue with this. Me and him got into it one time. Not bad into it, but just kind of talking. And I said, the problem you got is you do not guard the three-point line like you should. And we play teams, and they'd have somebody just light us up from out there. And that's a fact.
Well, I look at some of Mark's teams, and of course, he finally in 2004 had a nice run, but the 2001 team should have been in the NCAA tournament. That was Gerald Wallace's 1 year here.
True.
But in 2002, they won the SEC regular season, then lost to Mississippi State in the championship game of the tournament in Atlanta.
Right.
When they had Mo Williams,
game.
And then talk about running and fluke things. They ran into Kent State in the second round. Remember, Kent State had a 6'5" post player by the name of Antonio Gates that went on, of course, to fandom and fame in the NFL as a tight end with the Chargers, but he ate Alabama alive. They threw it down there on the low post, and this 6'5", 250-pound bulldozer just trucked Alabama, and Stan Heath, who was the coach, parlayed that win over Alabama and that run in the NCAA tournament to the head coaching job at Arkansas. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. And but that's what I'm saying is you have to be on the lookout for what you have not seen out of a team.
No, you do. Absolutely.
And they'll come in there and they'll roll somebody in there that they know can shoot, but you don't know, and they'll make a fool out of you.
And then I remember the next year, Godfrey had a really good team, and they got to number 1 in the country and went to Utah and promptly got beat as soon as they were number 1. Then they limped into the NCAA tournament and remember lost to Mike Davis, former Alabama player, in Indiana in the first round.
Exactly.
But the all-timer, as far as what you're talking about, was 1983. Alabama basketball, that team that had beaten Georgetown, blown them out 82-83, and beaten UCLA in Pauley Pavilion when they were number 1. Bobby Lee Hurd said, "What's a Lamar?" Lamar 73, Alabama 50. Remember that one?
Oh, yes, my God, yes.
First round. All right, Ty. Hey, I'm glad you called in. We ought to have, well, hey, we'll go down to you. Maybe I can get Godfrey on again soon, and you can call in, and you and I and him will go down memory lane about all his teams.
Dude, that would be great. Anyway, enjoy the show.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Got to go. All right, this hour has been brought to you by Patterson Comer Attorneys at Law. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. A reminder to catch me on TV tonight with your local sports and with Rodney Orr for Tider Insider TV at 6:30 on WVUA 23. T-Town Sports Daily is next. Have a great day, everybody. Be back tomorrow. We'll talk NASCAR with Matt Coulter and Bart Heights on hoops. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.